Wait. And we are live, I believe. Hello, everyone. YouTube tells me there are 4 people watching, 5 currently. So do drop in the chat, give a sign of life. Let me know that I'm not just doing this, for for the walls, as my dad used to say. Yeah, and feel free to, like comment, ask questions. This is a live stream. And the great thing about it being a live stream is that it can be interactive. The recording will be up also, but, let's see if we can make this a mutual thing. And I was kind of in the middle of something here, which I feel like I'm just going to try to wrap up, and then I'll talk a little bit about everything that's happened since the last stream. Because, oh boy, a bunch of stuff has happened. Hello, Yuri. Hope I'm saying your name right. Thanks for showing up, and thanks for reacting in the stream. I think it'll be fun. I don't know if folks have seen the previous videos. So we are basically creating a ActivityPub implementation a la Mastodon in Clojure. And we're doing it in a little bit of a particular way. I decided to use Postgres, and so a lot of it has basically been sort of doing some setup so that we can very easily get these RDF-like objects in and out of Postgres. But that's starting to come together, and I really quite like where it's going. Actually, read JSON. We can probably tell this one to use keywords for keys. Hello, 1, 2, 3. I'm guessing by default it's just going to use strings. Let me quickly go to the chart readme. Keyf and keyword. That's easy. Yeah. Then I don't need this here. That would have been kind of a clutch anyway. So we want to parse the props and then merge them into as result. I'll explain what I'm doing here in a second. This shows result RDF props. Yeah, and merge that in here. Let's see, can I now retrieve in 89 we have a vector somewhere where we don't expect to have a vector. Is this returning a vector? Or is this, or is result results a vector? Right. Can we do an execute 1? That's a thing, right? Let's see. Okay, and here we are. Okay, so what has happened in the meanwhile? So this is our application configuration, which is powering webbing which is using GX. So GX is an alternative to integrant. People are probably more familiar with integrant. What is new here is that we now have a separate storage schema component. And then that goes into the storage DB component. Now, what does that do? I've started a file here, activitystreams.eden, where we sort of have schemas for the different types of objects that ActivityStreams knows about. So, for instance, we have actors. So any person or service with a Mastodon account, with a Fediverse account, is an actor. And actors have subclasses. So we have, for instance, person as a subclass of actor and service as a subclass of actor. And so for each of these, we're going to have a table in the database. So here, for instance, is our actor database. And you see that we already have some stuff in there. In JSON LD, RDF fashion, these all have a URI which uniquely identifies them. They have a type, so this is an ActivityStreams person. Then they have, some metadata that we track, inserted, updated, and then the various ActivityStreams properties. We have a generic JSON-B properties map for anything that we don't have a first class column for. We can just shove in there. So it's sort of a little bit of a mix of, schema and schemaless. We can always just push data into the database and not have to worry about not having schemas for every single keyword. But we can split them out into first class columns if we want to. Now, to go back here, I'm going to open the schema component. So, okay, this is all a little bit hairy. But basically, when this thing starts, so we have here our GX component, which is referenced in the config I just showed. So here we have our DB schema. In the DB schema, we have a component var. That's this thing. Here we implement the GX start signal with a signal processor, which is this function. So it takes a number of props. That's the ones that we define here. Someone saying something on Mastodon? No, I just have a new follower. Okay. And then what it's going to do is it's going to read these different schema files. So currently we just have one, ActivityStreams Eden, but maybe in the future we'll split it up. And then it'll create a database if the database doesn't exist. That's why we have a separate admin URL here. We sort of need a root user, but then we'll discard that afterwards. And then it'll loop over these schemas. It'll say migrate tables, which is basically gonna either create the table, or if the table already exists, it's gonna add the columns that we don't have yet. We also set up this trigger so that it sets the updated timestamp when things change, and so forth. And so basically what's cool about this is that, let's say for instance, so I started here on a new type of object in ActivityStreams note, which is a toot, a post on the Fediverse is a note, and it has certain properties. I have an example of a node here, and so if I, for instance, say that so far we just have configured a couple of these properties, but say that this is a date time. Now when I do a reset, when I restart my system, assuming I didn't break anything, and of course that means that I should comment this stuff out, that now our node table has a published column. And so this will be, you know, like this has been a little bit of setup, um, but this kind of stuff where then like once it's set up, it's just super plug and play, and you can just iterate really quickly. I love that kind of stuff. I think it really pays off in the course of development. The other thing that I started doing is setting up factories. So this is going to be a big part of what we're going to be doing today. So I'm using a Lambda Island library here called Fatsai and combining it with a library called Faker. So let's maybe start with Faker. So we have, if you open the Faker repo, you'll find a file here called supported fakers. And so when I'm working with this library, I usually have this one open so I can sort of like, you know, quickly search for certain fakers. So for instance here, you know, let's say Pokemon games or Big Lebowski actors. Then I can say faker fake this thing, and we get a fake value. So this is, you know, this is power. This is basically a port of a Ruby library. Yeah, port of the Faker Ruby gem. It contains a bunch of data. The original has YAML files. We've converted that to transit files. They're more compact and they're faster to load. And so that powers it. But then it also has, you know, so you can say things like, well, you can give it a regex, for instance. You know, that'll turn into a valid faker, which generates values for that regex. If you give it a set, it'll give you one of those values, and if one of those values itself is a faker, then it'll, is it character? It'll return, or should be returning, one of those values. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, there's a bunch of things you can do with this. You can also actually give it a string pattern. No, is it not like this? Oh, it actually uses the Ruby syntax, right? This faker you then combine with Fatsai. With Fatsai you set up these factories. So for instance here I've set up a factory for person. It takes a template and then optionally key value pairs additional arguments. In this case I'm using this after build hook. The reason is that, you know, like these additional attributes all kind of depend on the username. And so I could just say, you know, RDFID local URI fake, you know, some faker that generates this. But then I'm gonna have like inconsistent objects where, you know, like it has like a name, a username, preferred name, a outbox URL that all like are completely different. Whereas now, so I can generate this fake person, which has, so in this case, this person is called Selma Bouvier. So we're taking combination of Simpson characters and Tolkien characters. So this is I believe a Simpson character. We've used some lipsum, some lorem ipsum to give it a summary. The username, preferred username is Selma12. And then this is going to be the public URL where people can find that user profile. There's an inbox URL. There's an outbox URL. And so this is what you can do with Fatsai, and there's more with, like, it's especially good when it comes to you know, having related entities. So say that we want to generate a node, so we're gonna soon want a factory here the factory note. And let's see again if we look at our data. So yeah, where is actually the person who published the note? ID in reply to URL. Surely there's, oh, attributed to. Okay. So we have an attributed to. Let's also put that in here. It's going to be important. Which is an IRI. And so here, then we say activity streams attributed to person. And let's say that we also give it a content. Activity streams content. Let's also do Lauren's sentence and not paragraph so it doesn't get too long. So now I can generate a note. And so it contains a person and it contains content. And now we should actually be able to test something. So we added that attributed to our database schema. So that should be there now. Let's actually just refresh this. Let's see. Yeah, so we have an attributed to. Now, and so one of the goals with this whole setup, so yeah, actually to finish my story from earlier, this DB schema component, it creates the whole database schema. So, you know, migrates everything so we have all the tables and all the columns. And then it returns a bunch of metadata about the tables and columns that we have. So that's part of our system. You should be able to see a storage schema. Right, so here we kind of expanded. We say like, okay, well, you know, we know that we have actor objects. They're stored in the actor table. We also have person objects. They're also stored in the actor table. And these are the properties that we know this thing has with their type. And in particular, like the fact that we distinguish here between which things are identifiers to some other objects and which things are just text means that we should be able, oh, and this is not gonna, is this gonna work quite yet? Right, yeah, because this nested, okay, yeah, this is gonna work as long as we do this RDF type activity streams note. Let's put that first. So now we should be able to say lambda island sook db absurd bang. In our system we have a storage db, and this is actually a two-element map. It contains that schema that we saw earlier, and it contains a data source, which is our C3PO connection pool, which we set up last time. And so basically all our DB database API is always going to take that map with both of these things and sort of consider that a connection, because it's going to need that schema metadata to sort of know what to do with certain parts of the data. So let's see, if I insert this node now, oh yeah, we don't have an RDF ID here yet. Let's say RDF ID local URI node rand ID or randint, just some high number. That should do for now. Okay, now let's see. Yeah, let's refresh this. So here we have our note. And it has, okay, there's something that went a little wrong with that URI. I need to check that. But it has an attributed to, which points at users Dewey22, which should have been inserted into into the database here, Dewey22. That one? Oh yeah, okay. Maybe we already had a Dewey 22. Kind of curious why it's row 2, or maybe they're just not particularly ordered in any way. That's also poor. Oh, they're actually, okay, they're ordered by primary key, which is just kind of random. I guess it makes more sense to order them by, can I edit this? Hello. Okay, I'm not up to date enough on how to properly use pgadmin. I'm sure there's a place where we can tell it. Do we need to like? Okay, anyway, doesn't matter. Maybe I'll figure this out by next time. But yeah, so that's cool. We can generate data. And so now that we have some data to test with, I think it's time to start actually implementing our first parts of the API. So let's go to the routes. Do I have a routes or do I have just a router? Yeah, a router. Okay. Yeah, my routes are here. Maybe we'll split those out later. Yeah, and so we're gonna have a users user ID get handler. I do think we might still be missing one part. So in the first stream, we worked a lot on this, converting JSON LD to idiomatic Clojure data. So that's what you see with all these namespace keywords. These all map one-to-one to RDF, to JSON LD identifiers, IRIs. And I think we still need some way to actually map back and provide proper JSON LD data that the caller is going to expect. Let's put that here so this isn't a syntax error. So we have here JSON LD internalize, and I think we also want to have a JSON LD externalize. And yeah, this is gonna similarly take a value and prefixes. So let's say we have a lambda island sook factories person, and we want to externalize that using the lambda islands. Yes, lambda island sook ActivityPub common prefixes. Yeah, we don't have externalize yet. Okay. And actually, I'm gonna do a little trick here. How is it set right now? Copy to register, something like that. Copy to register. Let's copy it to E. And so now I should always be able, isn't it comma register? Yeah. Copy to register E. Okay, yeah. So I can evaluate this and then comma, comma, E. Okay, let's try another one. How about I do comma? So, okay, yeah, right. Right, so we have this value. This is gonna need a add context. And I guess we probably just want to replicate whatever Mastodon puts for its add context. I'm sure I have it here somewhere. Experiments here. No. Okay, let's actually just do yeah, JSON LD stuff. JSON fetch, and then do a JSON fetch of to cat users plexus. That's my profile. Context. And maybe we actually want to pass that in. Let's see, ActivityPub, dev default context. Yeah, so we definitely need activity streams, but like I feel like for Mastodon compatibility, we're gonna need a lot of this too. And I guess what we're actually gonna have to do this properly is to expand this context again, and then use our prefixes, expand them to full URIs, and then map them back via the context to short identifiers. So we have here our JSON LD. We have expand context. All right. Yeah, and let's. So this is like second time around. This is much faster because it's a lot of it is cached, and we can do more caching on this to make this more performant. Now we're gonna just turn it into a lookup map. Say map. Okay. Yeah. KV. Get v ID. Okay. Yeah, there's a couple special ones here that we might need to filter out. Let's maybe, but actually, yeah, some of these are, so yeah, like at type needs to become just type. So we actually do want some of these at ID, because this is the only one that's kind of weird, but I don't think it's going to cause us trouble. So, IRI, let's just call that prop. That's a lookup map. expand context. So we're actually going to have to pass a context here. We'll put that context in here as well, since that's the context we use to compact it all again. And then I think we're just going to do a walk. Actually, I guess we can associate the context afterwards. Do we already have a walk here? Yeah. Walk. Do we want a post walk or p-walk? Usually post walk's a good default. Not thinking about it too hard right now, so I'm going to walk over our whole data structure and basically just say get IRI prop percentage. Like if we have it in there, we're going to map it. Except that this data structure v is, now this is okay. Yeah, we're gonna do this. Okay, I think so here at ActivityPub, I made this keyword to IRI. But actually we need a version of that here that takes the prefixes as an argument. But let's maybe make this one a bit more lenient. If it's a keyword, then we try to expand it. If not, we'll just leave it, even though that shouldn't really happen, I think. Otherwise, you know, you just get the value back. Yeah, okay, I guess this could be an if. I was thinking to have a separate case for strings, but we really don't need a separate case for strings. The only thing that might become a problem is if we have phrases, you know, like AS node or something like this, where it actually uses this like shortened syntax with a colon, but we'll see if we have any of those. Yeah, sure, let's try this. Yeah, okay, this one takes prefixes. Should probably get rid of that duplication, but that's okay for now. Prefixes. Okay, and that's actually not looking bad, right? Like this looks a lot like what you would get from Mastodon. Like it just uses these short words again. Yeah, so Sook origin is something that we added that actually should not be exposed in the public API. RDF ID should just become ID. We'll probably need the special case that. Same for RDF type, which should become at type. So we need a couple special cases for that. So yeah, let's say convert val, make that a function. V. Let maybe IRI. Maybe IRI. But actually here, gonna say cont type. Actually, yeah, we should do that as a first pass. V if is RDF type, turn that into type, at type. If it's RDF ID, turn that into at ID. And then that should, in the next step, be mapped to just type without the at and type without ID without the at if that's part of the context. Yeah, and then here we just say convert val. Character cannot be custom map entry. We're putting a string into a map somewhere. In particular line 165, which is calling post walk, which is calling conch bang. Are we doing something funny here? Oh, I need an else case here probably, but that I don't think that's it. Yeah, so this basically it all defaults to just returning the value itself unless there's a match. Are we turning a map into a string somewhere? Okay, that works. Oh. We're converting everything into these strings. Come on, folks on the chat. You should have seen this. You should have told me this. Don't just sit there. Yeah, sweet. So we have an add context. We have the ID. We pretty much have everything. Yeah. So now let's see. We can go back to our ActivityPub namespace and add an externalize here. Value. Externalize the value with the default context and the default prefixes. Easy peasy. And also this one, actually no, I'm gonna keep this one here separate for now. I think that could be useful. Yeah, and then actually our first handler. So yeah, this has all been a lot of, a lot to do about setup and so forth, but like at this point it's gonna start getting a lot of fun. We can actually really nicely start iterating on the protocol. So I start a portal. You don't see it. I might show it in a second, but I just want to here say tap request. I think it comes in as like query params, but I'm not 100% sure because it differs between routing libraries and different middleware implementations. So let's do that. Curl, and let's also see. So we should have a forwarding set up so we can actually trigger this publicly. You can do this at home if you're following. Should be able to do something like users Arna. Oh, SSL wrong version number. What is happening here? Does it say anything here? Start proxy success. this def dot? Oh no, did we call it something else? Wait, settings, dev squid casa, HTTPS dev squid casa should be. Wait, let's start FRPC again. And then that is, it's like using a bad version of SSL? Can I like say like insecure? Wrong version number. What? Okay. This should work. What port am I running this on? Settings 3838. Okay. Users Arna. Okay, yeah, and now our request showed up in portal. And yeah, so we should have a path params. Yes, of course, it's not a query param, it's a path param. Yeah, I have portal set up to always stay on top, which can actually get a little annoying too, but okay. So keys path params. And so ActivityPub. Oh yeah, and also something we can look at now that we have this here. So we have some middleware which injects, yeah, so we have a subcontext here where we have our storage DB. Might set up a little helper for that. Defin dbcon from request, get in request, suc context storage db. And so then we can here say ActivityPub externalize. Gonna have to add that namespace. DB retrieve. Yeah, and we also need the origin. So part of our configuration is the origin. Settings dev, yes. So origin is a concept that's used a lot in all kinds of web security related things. Like it's basically a URL without any path or query or fragment. It could contain a port, but so it contains the scheme or the protocol and the domain most notably. And so that's sort of used to identify a single entity on the web basically. And so here originally we just had the domain, but yeah, if you wanna start generating URLs and stuff, we need to know if we're running HTTP, HTTPS. I mean, supposedly this will only run on HTTPS, but like I don't really want to limit that. Like sometimes there are cases where you do want that to be HTTP, or maybe there will be a different protocol in the future. So it just seemed a little more proper to actually talk about origins. Yeah, we don't have DB here yet. Suc DB, and then let's actually use lambda island URI here. URI need that. request as request. So path users user ID path params. Yeah, and this is gonna need the DB connection based on the request. Oh, we don't have string users. What am I doing here? Path string users is what I meant to say. And maybe we actually can do something clever here and sort of reuse the URL that we get as they're calling us. But yeah, let's already try this. So yeah, and let's see the user that actually exists in database. Yes, 75. Can we get users? Yes, 75. We cannot because retrieve needs 2 arguments. Did I not pass it 2 arguments? Retrieve 1, 2. Did I not evaluate this? Oh, 2 is not the right amount connection. Oh, it needs a type. Well, the type is activity streams actor. Okay, what do we get now? 500 cannot open, nil as a reader. Okay, is this returning? Oh, I probably need to coerce this back to a string, or maybe we do it here. Where's IRI used here? Only in one place, right? So let's say this. Don't know if that's the problem here, but now the problem is actually in chart. Let's see. Chart API to reader, and chart is being called read JSON. Do we have a nil for properties somewhere? These props all have a proper value. So this is the chart call in SugDB retrieve line 90. SugDB 90. Yeah, we probably want some checks here to make sure that we actually get something back. When result. Three pass to externalize. Externalize. And this is JSON LD externalize. No, LD externalize. Hey. Let's actually JSON PP that. So we have a, well, okay, it's just the context. I guess we didn't get a value back. That's kind of auto. Let's see. So what's portal? Oh, I guess, oh yeah, these are all example.com. So these are on a different host. Let's generate some data for our actual instance. Oh, that's a node. Well, that's also going to make a user, but let's make a person or 2 or 3. Okay, squid casa old 70. We should be able to get old 70. Yeah, and there's old 70. So that's cool. I think that's progress. Now, in particular for Mastodon, there's actually one step that comes before this. If we are going to try to follow this user from a Mastodon account, so then we need this. We need Mastodon to be able to retrieve the user profile. But we also are going to have to implement WebFinger, because in Mastodon you have these so I am like plexus at toot.cat. This is not something that really exists in the activity streams or ActivityPub spec as such. But what Mastodon kind of figured out, because you do, I guess, want some more convenient way of referring to people, because the way to refer to a user in ActivityPub is with, this kind of URL. At least if it's a Mastodon implementation, that's the shape of URL that they use, which is different again from this URL, which is sort of the public profile. But then you also have an account URL, which is what Mastodon uses when it tries to retrieve information in a first step using a separate protocol, not activity streams or ActivityPub, but WebFinger, or I mean, I guess you could argue that this WebFinger usage is considered part now of ActivityPub. But so we're gonna have to implement WebFinger. So let's see, streams 53 minutes. Let's cap it like probably around an hour. But it should still be able to get this in, and then maybe we can actually see it do something. So let's actually, so here's a little bit of poking around with WebFinger I did. So let's say that like from the toot.cat domain, we wanna find information about the plexus at toot.cat user. Then we can do this, and we're gonna get something back that has a subject, aliases, and links. And the most important link here is the self link, which points at the actual user. The O status stuff, I think that's legacy. We're not gonna do that. But yeah, so we need it needs to be at this location, well-known WebFinger. So let's add a route for that. Well-known WebFinger. Yeah, there's something I need to fix about my Emacs. And I more or less know what it is. I just need to get to it. It's basically an issue in Corgi. Let's already put that here. The parameter we're going to be looking for is called resource. So similarly, we have actually in this case it's not path params, it's query params, because it is a query param called resource. Let resource, or let's just say keys resource query params. Yeah, and we'll need 404 here if it doesn't exist and so forth. Let's not worry too much about that yet. We're gonna have to do some parsing on this because it does accept a bunch of different forms. So here, all of these work. Now, I think we can generalize that quite well using Lambda Island URI, because this does kind of follow more or less the same structure. Let's see. Does that have the domain in the right place? No, okay, it puts it in the path. So I guess we do have to do a little bit of manual parsing on this. Yeah, if it was like this, we would actually find it in the domain, I guess. yeah, in the host, yeah. Um, yeah, but all the other ones, I mean, it's, I mean, these, I don't think we need to implement these shapes. And I don't think we necessarily need to do like HTTP if our origin, our servers serving on HTTPS. But yeah, like I guess the two important ones would be these two. Uh, Actually, just to be a little bit wayward, I don't like these URLs. I think this is ugly. Like Twitter does that, okay, I can understand you don't want to have that necessarily, but like, maybe like Reddit style, something like this. I think that's more what we're going to be doing. So, um, yeah, meanwhile, a couple more viewers showed up, I guess. We have 4 concurrent viewers. Please do, pitch in the live chat. We'll be wrapping up soon, but I'd still love to hear about who's here and what you think, and if you have questions or remarks or concerns. Um, okay, so let's say we get let resource, we get this. Um, Actually, let's do this for resource, and then we can immediately see if we're dealing with all the different cases. So we want to be able to deal with account. We want to deal with this shape, which is sort of the public URL, and then we want to be able to deal with this shape, which is the canonical ID in ActivityPub. So I think the first thing we're just going to do is say URI resource, and then cont scheme or actually case, let's say case, and then we have HTTP, HTTPS, and account. If it's HTTP or HTTPS, let's make it a cont, because this is really, and I guess we are just gonna lump this all together right now and not care too much about if this actually matches what we're serving as. If let, so okay, we have the scheme, but in this case we're gonna need the path. Yeah, and then okay, we actually origin HTTPS to.cat. Let when is yeah, okay, actually this is in particular for HTTP, HTTPS. We're gonna check if equals host, yeah, let's maybe also covers this URI. You know what, I'm gonna restart Launchpad. I think that's gonna make this Emacs issue a little bit better, because it has something to do with these class loaders and the fact that CIDR does a lot of class path resource lookups, which it shouldn't be doing. But so whenever Launchpad reloads things, it inserts this priority class loader, which is a little slower than the regular class loaders. Anyway, so if the origin matches host, and if the scheme matches, scheme 16. Then we're going to look at the path. If let refind regex is first. You or users. Not / plus anchor. It's also anchored at the start. Path IRI. It's actually, let's do this. Okay, let's test that. Does this return anything besides an error? Cont requires even number of forms. Where's my cond? Yeah. Yes. Well, let's keep the same account. Schema IRI. Yeah, okay, that's good. Oh. Don't need that one, don't need that one. This is gonna be the username. And then we can say domain host IRI username you. Yeah, nice. And if it's account, then we basically just say let domain username string split. Do I have string here? Yeah. String split with the at the path IRI. And then similarly domain username string oh, it's the other way around. Always fun. Yes, it's the other way around indeed. Boom. Yeah, that's nice. And this should return nil. Okay. So yeah, that's gonna be our implementation. Let's put that in ActivityPub. So defn parse user resource Let's see, probably don't have URI here yet. No. Add missing, so that adds it. Yeah, origin, so we're gonna want to pass in an origin here. Origin URI origin. Oh, we also need string. Okay, so now we should be able to say parse user resource. Our origin is def squid casa, and someone asks for the account plexus at def squid casa. Yeah, that's great. So we're going to use that here. We have a resource that's incoming. We can say keys domain username ActivityPub slash. No ActivityPub slash. Wait, I restarted. I probably should start my system, but okay, let's make sure that we don't have syntax errors here. Go. Component could not be resolved. 45. Is this not a valid map? Which map is the problem? Okay, go. Okay, start our system. ActivityPub, parse user resource, origin request, resource. If let user db retrieve db connection request ActivityPub or activity streams actor, and then yeah, this is gonna be string. Probably should like leverage the route information here, but I just want to quickly get this together now without having to poke at rated documentation. Username. Actually, I guess like we don't really need to return domain here because we only care about our own domain, and it's not going to return anything if it doesn't match anyway, unless it's an account URL, I guess. Anyway, this should at least work for stuff on our host. Okay, so if we can get a user back from the database, well, if we don't, then we're just going to say status 404. Come on, 404. If we do, then we're going to need something of this shape. Subject is whatever they asked for, resource. Aliases. So if we look at our factories, what do we have here? We have the activity streams URL, which is the public URL. So activity streams URL user. We have the RDF ID of the user. And I guess we have account domain at username. Guess technically we should maybe just only have the ones here that are not this one, but let's start with this. Profile page, text HTML, that's this guy. Getting pokes on Mastodon. Okay. That's that one, and then self, that's the most important one, because that's you know what this really is all for is mapping these account URLs to these proper full identifiers that are then sort of the canonical identifier for this user in ActivityPub. So that's the RDF ID of the user. And then, yeah, like I said, we're not going to care about this one. Okay. We have a bad map literal somewhere. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, seems about right. I was complaining about that earlier as well, and I'm not sure why. No, it's not these. Sometimes it's in the destructuring, because I don't think we get a good line number from this kind of error, right? Yeah, the joy of Clojure errors. Oh, status body, that's the one. Again, you know, like chat should have told me. Disappointed in you, chat. Not living up to expectations today. I won't hold it against you too much. Okay, let's see if we do a well-known WebFinger for resource equals account old 70 at dev.squid.casa. And then the shell tries to expand it. And then we get a error, ruds 39. Oh, username's not a function. What is this, JavaScript? Oh, we're getting a 404, okay. Let's see what we're actually retrieving here. Tap. Oh, do I still have my portal open? No, I guess I closed it. Oh, we don't, oh. There's no username. Let's tap this and also tap resource. Is it not query params? This get request. Query params. Oh, it's not a keyword, it's a string. That kind of makes sense. Then we can just do this. Okay, I'll leave those in there for now, because we're still getting a 404. So I know. Oh, no resource. Okay, yeah, no, actually it's doing stuff. Okay, so we get a resource, it's finding the domain and the username. Don't know what that was. It's finding a URL. That's could cause a user's old 70. But for some reason it's not retrieving that. HTTPS devsquid casa users old 70. 2D streams actor. That all seems pretty correct. How do we do the retrieve here? Activity streams actor, yeah. Let's do this. Username. I mean, it should be same thing. Yeah, so we have the subject in there, we have aliases, and we have links. But Yeah, I guess there's still something funny with our SSL. Let's see what it looks like from a browser. If I say HTTPS devsquidkaza secure connection failed. Why is it doing that? Okay, you know what? This FRPC has been running for quite a while. Let's restart that real quick. Actually, let me do that in a separate terminal so we don't nest tmuxes. Tmux. Term, no term. There we go. Tmux at. Okay, so let's start this server and then go back here and restart the client. And then do another request. devsquidkaza. And then what does it say here? New proxy success. That's a bummer, you know, like might just need a reboot or something. I don't know. This was working last time we were hacking on this. Because now we're actually at the point where I should be able to put in a username, you know, at squidkaza into a Mastodon instance and have it at least see the user. But you'll have to take my word for it, I guess. I don't know. Do I need to upgrade FRP? Do I need to generate a new cert? Well, I'll figure it out off stream. I think I'll wrap it there. But then we have a treat to look forward to on the next stream, which hopefully won't be as long. Maybe I'll even get to it coming weekend. Yeah, so I've been very quiet in the chat today. Kind of bummed about that, but glad that a few people were here. And of course, the video will be up, so folks can always check it after the fact. So thank you very much. And oh yeah, and I should probably a little bit of household stuff. I'll push the code in a moment. Where do I have an yeah, so code is here, Lambda Island Sook. And yeah, feel free to poke around with that. Have a good day, everyone.